the Captain America. You know, Sean, why don't you comment first and foremost about what, I mean, I heard that, you know, he's struggling to get bank loans. I mean, Captain America, I guess it doesn't really count for that much.
Yeah, you know, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the way they dealt with the racism question, I mean, it was a lot more sophisticated than you would expect from like Marvel, right?
Right.
And for people who may not know, the Falcon's character is actually from Louisiana. And so a part of the story is that, you know, he comes from like this fishing family, and they have this boat. They come from like this small knit black community. And you know, they gotta, you know, sell the boat. They're going through financial hard times. And he comes to his sister, who's been holding this down since he like disappeared during the blip. And he's like, hey, we'll just go get a loan. He's like, I'm the Falcon. I'm literally an Avenger. They're gonna give me a loan. I guess this bank didn't talk to Jim Clyburn because, you know, buddy, the teller, the dude who took his application, he recognized him, but he was like, we're not finna give you no money though.
Yo.
And so, you know, it was in the ending, you know, spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it, but it's been a couple weeks. So. And at the end of the show, he kind of like, because he struggles with, well, you know, what does it mean to be a black man and to be Captain America? And then there was this black Captain America that didn't nobody tell us about, and y'all made him a political prisoner and experimented on him on some Tuskegee vibe. And he has to like live in obscurity. But he comes to this point where like he's kind of critical of the system, but basically on board with it. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I mean, I thought the show itself was great. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it more than WandaVision. But yeah, you know, this is a take on the comics. The Falcon does become Captain America in the comics at one point when Steve Rogers becomes old. And so, I mean, yeah, it's just interesting to see how the broader political climate in the country finds its way into pop culture like this.
Yeah, almost every show now is trying to work in something. I mean, even the cop shows, you know, are trying to find a way to work in Black Lives Matter or whatever they want to call it, or however they want to look at it. I mean, it really has been interesting to see, and I think you're right there about Marvel. I mean, Marvel is always, it's sort of like the Black Panther, you know what I mean? They kind of want to come to the edge of some level of social commentary, but they don't want to do too much.
I don't know.
So the CIA agent is a hero, you know, go ahead, Juan.
I feel like, honestly, it like the social commentary and Falcon and the Winter Soldier was definitely better than in Black Panther. Like
agreed.
Like it was the way, like the interactions. There was one point he's having an argument with Winter Soldier, and he like steps outside and they're arguing outside, and the cops pull by and they like pull out their gun and they go to Winter Soldier, who is a white man, right? They're like, "Is this man bothering you?" Like right away. And then the cop is like realizes that it's like Falcon, and he's like, "Oh wait, my bad. I didn't know who you were. Like I didn't know who you was. That was my mistake." He gets a gun pulled on him. Like, wow. I don't know. I felt like Black Panther, and I might get attacked for this.
Go ahead.
But I feel like Black Panther was definitely like, I don't know who that was for. Ooh. Like, really? Ooh. Like, I don't know who that was for. I felt like that was more for like white folks than it was for anybody else. It was like this lip service that.
That's Juan in the booth right there.
I'm with you.
Like honestly, like I was so mad. I was so mad with Killmonger. The way that they represented him as a villain had nothing to do with the actual politics.
You're spoiling. Hold on, spoiler alerts. I have not seen this show yet.
No, this was 3 years ago.
That came out like 6 years ago.
This was 3 years
like,
ago.
We're wilding. Ryan, you're not gonna see it. You're not gonna see it. You and Kay. You and Kay are not gonna watch this movie. Okay, watch the movie and you didn't. That's a problem.
You're gonna have to explain.
Also, I was having to fix. I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm having like a light. The sun is destroying my shot.
I thought you had Michael Bay doing your camera. I thought you was getting the trying to get the.
It's like the sun
flares.
is like slowly taking over my face.
Eugene can't see you.
It'll eventually pass. Eugene can't see. It'll eventually pass, but I look like I'm being like eaten by the light of the sun.
I'm just kind of imagining what it could potentially be like.
For y'all, for everybody on the other side of this. Listen to the Other Side, coming to you soon.
Great podcast.
If you become
only.
if you become a patron, you get to listen to the Other Side podcast. But if for the folks that are on the other side of this, Eugene is currently staring at a camera, and there's no monitor for him to see, so he's just
Can't see any of
talking
us.
to
This is
a
the
wall.
Apollo 13
Totally
version
blind.
of the Freedom Side Live. I'm just up here. Houston
talking to
is
a
on is in my
camera.
ear.
Talking to a camera.
I
It's
should-
like
well,
he's
where's
not
that
just
Harris?
looking at
Can
a
I
wall.
contact that
There's
Harris?
a camera
Wait.
there.
But I had a point. Like the Killmonger, right? Like the way that they showed that his character was bad, at least in like the way I saw the movie, was violence against women. Like he killed his girlfriend in it, and then he was gonna attack T'Challa's mom, right? And Shuri. Like that's the way that they show he was a villain. Like his character was flawed and stuff, but like the politics that he was bringing forward were more radical, were the most radical politics in the MCU. And what happened at the end? Wakanda joined the UN. That was like ooh, like,
and
They're
T'Challa
not- they're-
opened
no,
a STEM
they're an
research
open
center.
country.
Like a
Yeah.
STEM center.
They're an open country now. They're an open country now.
they started a nonprofit. They
Yeah.
joined the UN and started a nonprofit.
They did.
But I've
know,
seen
and-
it, right?
and
I'm not like, okay, I just want to clarify.
Wait,
Like,
you
I don't
have
want
seen
anyone
it.
to think I was. Yeah. I'm not like living under a rock. I was just
I
saying, don't spoil it for.
Oh, you were
the
talking about
people, but I
Falcon and the
realized-
Winter Soldier. We thought you meant
I
Black
also
Panther.
was a
No.
little. I was also a little distracted because of my light situation, but that's better now.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, but-
Eugene, I'd love to actually. We should scare Eugene because he can't see any of us. We should like scare him into thinking it's a lot worse.
I mean,
You have
I'm
no
actually
idea.
sitting in the dark right now. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't even see Sean. Sean is just.
I mean, as
Yeah,
long
but
as you can hear
what?
Sean, that's
I really,
all we need.
yeah. You know
Great
what?
voice.
I agree with you about the politics of Black Panther, man, in a sense, because I think Disney very shrewdly understood the moment that this movie was being released in politically and culturally, and they knew how people would react to it if it was framed a certain way. And so they presented it as if it had some kind of deep political substance, but like it didn't,
No,
right?
not
And
at all.
because we're talking about Wakanda, this fictional African country with what I think in that universe is the most valuable resource, vibranium, extremely advanced. And so, but completely shut themselves off. So you're telling me that slavery, colonialism, imperialism, and neocolonialism have been violently raging around you for centuries, and y'all was just chilling.
And Killmonger
Right.
brought that up. He brought that up in
Yeah,
the movie.
and-
He's like, "Where were you?"
But see, here's the
He's
thing.
like, "Where were
I
you?"
feel-
Well, you
I
know,
feel
to
like the
eat-
points,
Go
like,
ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I feel like the good points that Killmonger made, it's almost like they tried to make him into like a leftist gone bad.
Yeah.
Like, this is why you shouldn't have these beliefs.
Uh-huh.
And that was like really obviously frustrating to watch. And then the way the CIA guy was the hero was obviously like, very upsetting because you're talking about Africa, where the CIA has literally murdered the leaders of countries that tried to be independent and has been a very destructive force. That's being very generous, actually.
Yeah.
Just to call them a destructive force. So to try and portray the CIA or anything connected to U.S. militarism as something positive was just disgusting. That was
Yeah.
disgusting.
And,
Like,
like,
you're teaching a generation of young people to like idolize the CIA. But I guess we all grew up with a lot of movies like that too.
Yeah.
Like,
That's true.
Yeah.
We
Where the
broke
CIA were the
through,
good guys.
if you will.
Yeah.
Juan, you want to get back in there?
Yeah, and not to like completely bash it, right? Because like I do feel like is it might be in my top 5 like MCU movies, but you know Ryan Coogler did his thing. Like it was a beautiful movie aesthetically. Like the fight scenes were amazing. Like it wasn't like that it was bad, but like the political aspect of it was not there, and like the character that was that Killmonger, like they made him seem like just like a powder keg, really. Like he was ready to blow at any time. He was an unstable character. You see like the way that he reacted, and it was really like to me a caricature of the left, or like a caricature of like what the Black Panther Party was, because when he got into power, he was going to share the resources of Wakanda with all oppressed countries. But it's like, how is that the villain?
Yeah.
Right? How is that the villain Meanwhile, you have like literally the U.S. trying to get its way into this sovereign country the entire time. That's why the agent was there, because they were trying to take control of the resource.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, we saw the thing with that last Christopher Nolan Batman,
Also,
the Bane character.
There
I mean,
was
this is a
also an
normal trope.
elitism. There was also an elitism to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't Killmonger from like a poor background?
Yeah.
Well, he had
he
been
was, like, from the
raised
projects
right,
or
but he was technically
Wakanda.
royalty. I don't know. Someone explain it. I don't know.
He
Right,
was
but he didn't
Wakanda.
know,
He-
right? But he was raised poor. Like, it's like the
Yeah.
idea was also. I
He
feel
grew up
like
in
it was
Oakland.
also playing on this notion, and this exists in the U.S., right? This like sort of divide between even like immigrants, like upper class immigrants that'll come to the U.S. kind of like looking down on Black Americans.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like there's just something like inferior about them because they're poor and Black. So there's like this class element that played out that I didn't like either in Black Panther, where he's this like, he didn't know his real background, but he grew up culturally in essentially a poor black background. And then the sort of like upper class prince, if you will, is like the hero, and he works with the CIA. And that dynamic was just like dirty too. That was
Well,
dirty.
Michael B. Jordan is
under him.
evening it all out, because as you may or may not know, he's appearing now in the new Tom Clancy film and Amazon as John Clark. So he is now going deeply into the world of CIA propaganda with this new, very slick-looking action film, where all I really know about is he murders a lot of people, and I'm sure since it's a Tom Clancy piece, it's just quasi-right-wing politics, but just speaks to the overall point about the cultural role being played by Hollywood in the most general sense, Sean.
Yeah, man. Y'all ever notice Michael B. Jordan's not really that good of an actor?
Don't.
Yeah, he's
Well,
not.
I feel like, Sean, I tried to tell you that for years.
You
and
did.
You resisted me.
You did. And you know, I feel like one of his best performances
But you
was
see,
when he
Sean,
played.
Why? Like, white people could be bad actors, but Black people gotta be good actors now. Like, that's not fair. Like, tell me,
Yes.
tell me why Brad Pitt is an actor. Tell me why Brad Pitt is an actor.
Hold on.
You don't think
It's
he's
a
a good
different
actor?
standard because
He played one
Hollywood
role.
only-
He's the same
Hollywood only
person
lets
in
us
every
have
movie.
4 Black
And
actors
he's
at a
That's
time.
hungry.
true.
Every movie he's hungry and he's Brad Pitt. He eat in every
He's a
movie
hungry
and he talk the same.
Sean,
He
go
might
ahead.
have been a different
Washington
person in
was
3
basically
movies.
the same, but he was great.
Please continue your
I'm
broader
just
point,
saying.
Sean.
I'm just saying, but yeah, so Michael B. Jordan, I feel like his best performance really was when he played Oscar Grant in Fruitvale Station. But that makes sense because like Oscar
Amazing
Grant was
movie.
like an everyday person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you sound like an everyday person, then that kind of helps. But yeah, you know, I couldn't really get down with Killmonger because he was motivated by vengeance. He wasn't motivated by principle. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he like a mercenary before
Yeah,
he decided
he
he
was.
wanted to
Yes.
reclaim
He
the
was in the
throne?
military first. And that's
Yeah,
and he got
so,
all the
like, I
little
don't know,
things. He
to-
put like he scarred himself
Yeah,
for
for
every
each
person he
kill.
killed.
Yeah, for each
Insane.
person he killed. And then, you know, they got to eat the special flower or whatever to become Black Panther. And he had them destroy all the flowers.
Mhm.
So he's like destroying the culture and all this of this thing that he's supposed to be reclaiming. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a movie about like 2 cousins fighting for like the right to the throne. And like, I just
I
don't.
have to
and
say,
while that- go ahead.
I do appreciate that like a military mercenary guy ended up fighting a CIA guy in a way, because it does end up happening with who the U.S. funds in other countries. Like, do you guys remember in Syria when the moderate rebels that the CIA was funding ended up fighting the moderate rebels that the Pentagon was funding? And it was like I thought that was hilarious, like in a really dark way. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing.
That
at
is very
but-
dark. But it's a fair point. It does happen. The Taliban, of course, is another example of that. But
Yeah.
a little higher stakes than a Marvel movie, but I'm with you.
A little higher, just a little.
Just a touch. For whatever reason, I don't know why this is reminding me of this, but you know, in 2013, one of these moderate rebel groups, Ahrar al-Sham, who's being backed by the United States, did a prisoner swap with the Assad government. And the guy that they swapped for was the person who recruited 3 of the 9/11 hijackers. And I just said, wow. So a U.S.-backed group just freed someone who recruited 3 of the 9/11 hijackers. Talk about irony, hypocrisy. I don't know what's going on with that one, but it does show the malign influence of imperialism and its puppetry has its blowback potential. That's for sure, Rania.
I mean, just a little bit. If you even think about like Al-Qaeda itself, Al-Qaeda wouldn't exist if the U.S. hadn't funded and armed like a bunch of terrorist training camps in Afghanistan throughout the 80s so that they could fight the Soviets. Like,
I was going to say someone should make a movie about
start.
that, but I realized they did, and it actually made them good, not bad.
Charlie Wilson's there was one good movie. That was it. Did it make them good? Did it really make them good?
It definitely made the Taliban good. I mean, at the last like 15 minutes, it made them bad, and then it was like, oh, and the Taliban came to power. But no, I think it was mainly pro.
I mean, the Taliban's about to come to power again, and the Taliban is in power now. That's the other thing about the war in Afghanistan. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. America, the Al-Qaeda exists because of American intervention in Afghanistan. The Taliban exists because of American intervention in Afghanistan. And then we spent the last 20 years apparently fighting the Taliban, only to then 20 years later be like, okay, here you go. We can't.
Well, what is the good movie?
Here you go. We can't.
What is the good movie about Afghanistan?
There is no good movie. I thought Charlie Wilson's War was decent. Well, I have a different opinion about Charlie Wilson's War.
Okay.
I think it does a really good job.
Rambo 3 or something.
No. I thought it does a really good job of portraying like the anti-communist agenda as insane as it was, especially when they like.
It did a terrible job. It completely lionized these ridiculous anti-communist
I didn't think it lionized them.
Oh
I think it made them the misogynist that they were.
No.
It could have gone further. I think it portrayed them as pretty misogynistic.
Yeah, like, but it basically portrayed them as good. They were doing the right thing, and the only thing that was wrong, as the little credits sit there at the end, is that we left Afghanistan, that we left them to whatever in the 90s and created the Taliban. It was basically like it was all good until we stopped dealing with them in the 90s. I will say, do you know in the 80s who the highest, one of the highest paid like recipients of CIA aid in the Mujahideen was? This guy Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, who later became prime minister of Afghanistan at one point. He actually rose to fame for throwing acid in the faces of women at Kabul University.
Wow.
That's who was one of the highest recipients of CIA aid to overthrow the Soviets, or the Soviet-backed government. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say the Soviets. To get rid of the Soviet-backed government was a guy who was throwing acid in women's faces because he didn't think they should go to school. So yeah, America full of lots of hypocrisy, because now, like 40 years later, you're saying you want to stay for the women?
Right.
Like you funded a guy who was throwing acid in their faces 40 years ago. And, anyway.
This is random, but maybe a couple years ago, whenever the latest Mortal Kombat game came out, they actually had Rambo as a playable character.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, it would be kind of amazing if after every fatality, it would be like a little tribute to the Mujahideen on the video game screen. Like
this
that's the ultimate finish.
My favorite Mujahideen fighter, Osama bin Laden.
I mean, look, you're trying to choose your fighter.